unfortunately, hello guys, again. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, I'm not going to be able to get the LLA game up today. So instead, what I thought I'd do is I would react to T1 losing to DRX. This was meant to be the game. Fake was meant to be coming back, I believe. He didn't. They lost. Their season is now in jeopardy. They lost their easiest game left. They still need to win at least one series in order to guarantee that they make playoffs. And hope for results to go their way. I mean, they're still in the driving seat, so that's not technically true. But you know what I'm saying? I think we're just gonna do a quick breakdown. It's not gonna be it's not gonna be paused too much. There's not gonna be any editing because this is just gonna be live breakdown, just going straight off my thoughts. So let's talk draft quickly. The draft in T1 has a lot of engage. Oh my god, there's a lot of engage. The Rel, the Nautilus, and the Gnar. I don't hate this draft at all. I think this draft's kind of nice from them, actually. Surprisingly enough for T1. Again, I'm not talking lane matchups. I think lane matchups are slightly overrated as long as you can play the lane. So we won't talk too much about that. I do think, though, that in terms of places to gank, you're going to be a little limited on the for owners' options. You probably don't want to gank mid. You probably want to gank top or bot just to try and get prior in those two relatively volatile matchups, especially top lane. Is volatile, but maybe you don't personally want to look there. And then on the other side for DRX, their draft is a little more standard. It's quite good. It's got decent peel. Braum actually wouldn't be a bad pick here, just for continuing the theme. The Alistair as well wouldn't be a horrific pick. Although I think I actually prefer the Braum in this team comp. Fresh as well, I'd also prefer, I think, over the Alistair, but we'll see what they'd go with. They did actually lock in the Alistair. Again, I don't think there's much of a problem with that. T1's comp is going to go in. Your team comp is trying to leave. Alistair's very, very tanky, so that facilitates that a little bit. So I guess there's nothing wrong with it at the end of the day. Yeah, that's it. So early on, DRX got a gank in the top lane. They managed to use their flash and the ult of Rascal to get the early kill. They didn't have to expend too much. Zeus didn't have to expend too much, so it's not like a major loss for them. They also got the gank on Poe because he was standing too high up in lane. He also wasted his ult unnecessarily. That's a bit of a loss to the team. I mean, the cooldown isn't tragic, but yeah. For this team fight, this is kind of interesting. So you can see the idea is that Rascal is here on a flank. That's pretty common for Renekton to come in on the flank. It is also quite common for top lanes to come in on a flank just because they're coming down. Both teams are completely here. This wouldn't be a bad situation, actually, for DRX to try and collapse on Poby, just because Owner and Zeus are so far out. And the Kai'Sa is also stuck down here, so if you do manage to kill Poby quite quickly, which you can do, theoretically, with the burst of this team, then you might be able to get the Kai'Sa who's somewhere down here, as you can see on the menu app. I'd be interested to see how they play out. T1 are quite spread, but equally they could just try and engage on someone like Paddock, who is kind of vulnerable, but also not. He's relatively well protected, especially with the peel that Xayah has inbuilt in the kit. Be interested to see how it goes. Obviously, the Herald's already down at 3k. Owner's going to engage straight onto Paddock, but he's not going to get a lot of damage. They are going to get the Herald from themselves. It's going to be Owner who goes down first, most likely here. He's got the Ignite on him. Beryl is quite weak because Brasco's going to be caught out on his own. I think he could still hop over in theory, but he's going to go down. It's a 1-for-1. In terms of resources used as well, T1 used the most there because they used Poby's flash, which means when the Herald doesn't even get a crash, that's pretty disappointing. Instead, Fate actually gets the turret, so it turns out that was a waste of time. That's pretty tragic for them. Zeus has got to be careful with this 1v1. He should win it theoretically. He's actually going to get the flash. He's going to win it completely outright. I'm surprised Rascal didn't try and dash away. I don't know what abilities he'd used because I'm covering that. So yeah, interesting. Kyriago going for the wall here is a bit interesting. They're going to get the Baron guaranteed, but he might have to give up his life. He does. And he's not going to be able to get a trade back. Fade's now going to be able to try and chase down Owner and Gumayusi. He might be able to get one, he doesn't. But whilst they have the buff, they're going to almost lose tower. They're going to engage here. It's going to be a 4v2, especially with the Ignite, the teleport coming down. Carrier is going to burn down, very, very weak. Beryl is actually also going to have to run away. He's very, very weak. So it doesn't result in anything. And eventually T1 do get the tower, which is kind of a net win for them. You have to remember, coming into this game though, the T1 are theoretically facing the weakest team in the league. So they should be winning this. Obviously they lost to Brian last week, which is also one of the weaker teams. And they've got Poby instead of Faker still. But still, it's a bit embarrassing to be losing the series or even being kept close. The Croco flank here is really good. Let's just come back to it so you can sort of see what happens. So they have, T1 have vision just sort of over here a little bit. You can't quite see it. Oh, sorry, my camera's covering that. It's over in this corner somewhere. So they can't see Croco here. So Croco can come over without using his flash, and he's going to get a decent flank onto all these vulnerable players. Owner is obviously the least vulnerable. He's the most tanky in this situation. But the real tank in the Gnar is all the way over here. He's isolated, and the Nautilus, for some reason, is a top lane on his own. Why is Nautilus in the top lane on his own? That's very weird. Very, very weird, in fact. I don't know whether there were setups to this. I'm obviously using Anivia's highlights. I do recommend using Anivia's highlights if you're ever not able to catch the live game and you don't want to watch the full series. So, for whatever reason, Nautilus is in top lane. Gnar is also isolated. So, this is just going to be a 5v3. This should be all of them going down. But they're going to be able to get a lot of damage down with the Azir passive onto Fate, who was probably going to go down eventually. But they managed to get Poby out first. Fate is not going to be caught. He's going to be able to retreat quite safely. It should now be a 4v3. No, oh, he did go down in the end, actually, to the Gnar. It's going to be a 4v3. Zeus is going to be, like, kept off by the Alistair, but he's going to free trade his life. Rascal's going to get hooked by Carrier, but Carrier gives up on trying to engage, so he's going to have to force Gumayusi to flash. Croco's also going to go down here. So actually, it went from a very promising setup to DRX losing, but that's mostly a hands diff and the Azir passive diff. That's not really anything else. Zeus trading his life there is a bit stupid. I guess it's a win, technically. They're managing to chunk down the bot lane inhibitor turrets whilst delaying this Baron take in the 5v4. Also doing a lot of damage to Beryl means that it's going to significantly reduce his ability to keep the team off. And also forcing out the TP from one of the players means they're going to be able to take this fight quite nicely as a 4v4, especially with their chunking down that they've been able to do earlier. Gumayusi is going to be able to play from the other side of the pit to get 2, and then they're going to get the other 2 as well inside the pit, winning that quite well. Zeus is also able to make Rascal base, which is nice. He's going to have to keep sitting in the fountain. And that is a pretty good game out of T1, actually. Apart from that one fight where they were caught out and they had their players sitting in a weird position, it was quite a good fight. Also, I really like their pink kits. I don't know why. I really like them. Let's go straight into Game 2. Game 2 draft. Moving myself out of the way again. Okay, this time, T1's draft, I don't like it as much. And it's quite simple why. There is less identity to this comp. Okay, so Renekton wants to go in. He can peel, but he wants to go in. Leona wants to go in. Can peel with her ult, but she wants to go in. Maokai, we'd rather you peeled. Azir. Ezreal, not as good as Kai'Sa at doing everything that this team comp kind of wants to do. So there's less of an identity. Also, Leona, not as good a pick as Nautilus, in my opinion, in the current meta. She also struggles more into picks like Braum, which praises the priority of Braum, who also counters, to a degree, the poke of Ezreal and the engage of Renekton. To a degree. He lessens it. He's also going to tank your Maokai ults and hopefully provide cover for the rest of DRX. Especially interesting that they opted into the Ezreal. When you look at the opposition of the DRX side, having the Trist, the Varus. When they pick up the Braum as well, because I'm almost guaranteed they pick up the Braum here, they're going to have a better front line as well. It's going to be tankier. They're going to have better poke because of the Varus. And Trist is able to do what Ezreal was able to do in terms of getting in, getting out, better. So, you lose this draft in every sense. I also prefer the Varus Braum lane into the Ezreal Leona lane. Not for any laning reasons particularly. Mostly just once you get out of lane, Varus and Braum are able to do a lot more, especially in these comps. The Trist into Zir is fine. Are there any other lanes that are really... Cassante Renekton is also fine. I think Cassante is technically better in that lane. Take this from a support's perspective. But I think it's fine. As they said, they should lock in the Braum here. If they didn't, I'd be rather surprised. I don't even really know we'd go outside of that. If you had a more tank champ like Ornn here, maybe you would have gone Yubi in the past, but not anymore. So yeah, they did go Braum. I'm a big fan of that. So early on, you got Croco on a deep flank. There's no ward outside of the river to help them from this. Carrier's already going to lose in the 2v2. Gumayusi's going to be forced to E. He's going to blink away. He's probably going to have to flash as well. He's used his cleanse. He's had to flash over the wall. Croco's going to chase. That's a net positive for DRX in terms of flash for flash. He might not be able to get the kill here, but that doesn't matter because he's forced the flash at Gumayusi and he's forced Owner to come down. And the thing about forcing out a flash is even if you don't get the kill or you don't get a kill later, if you force out the flash over the Ezreal, or Ezreal, it's less applicable to because Ezreal has his blink as well. But if you force out the flash of an ADC, they can't sit as high up in lane. They can't try and hit turret plates for as long. Basically, it stops them being as aggressive. And so it's a big advantage. Also, they're going to take Ocean Drake here, which is nice for them. They're going to come down and they're going to push Gumayusi back a little bit. Herald set up again. This time, we've got no Varus. Varus is going to arrive late. But they do have the advantage of their top side arriving earlier. But top lane arriving earlier. But T1 are actually going to be on this sooner. The difference is, however, that Carrier, if they turn, is going to just abandon Owner here. Owner and Povey. Which either means that he's going to die very quickly to Rascal, or they're going to get the 2v1 in the upper side, and maybe a 2v2 in the lower side of this fight, or 3v3 actually, because Ezreal and Trist should arrive at the same time. Which means they're going to have the advantage because Varus isn't here. How it plays out, though, we'll see. So they're not going to turn quickly. Zeus is going to hold off Rascal. I think T1 lost the smite fight. Croco's going to get out with using his flash. Beryl is going to go down, but Rascal looks like he's going to be able to get the trade onto Carrier. No, he's going to die as Fate's going to die as well. Rascal does manage to get Carrier though, and they manage to get Poby, and the poke is Varus absolutely pops off to get Owner as well. I mean, I say pops off, but it makes a big difference. Gumayusi here, going to get collapsed on. This is big because it means that he's probably, knowing the way that players play, he's likely to burn at least one summoner spell, which makes him instantly more vulnerable. If he burns both, he's going to be completely available to gank at any time. Yes, he's behind in lane already, but if you can get him even further behind in lane, it's big. And you're committing a lot of resources here, so you really want to get it. And he's not going to be able to trade anything, but he is going to die. There we go. It's still big, even if you can't get any resources. He was going to die anyway. Perhaps a bit of a waste of resources from the DRX side, because they won't have Seju ult here. Beryl is going to be the focus here. He's going to go down quite quickly. But on the other side of the fight, Poby's already down. So that's a carry for support. They do manage to get the ADC as well. So that's quite big for T1. That was a decent fight in the end for T1. DRX presumably probably sacked it afterwards. But their turret is going to go down here. They're not going to get any of the gold though for DRX for that. Apart from the first turret gold, which it wasn't even first turret. So ignore me. They're going to focus. They're going to put the focus down onto Owner here. Owner's going to definitely go down as he's caught out. He's going to pop his ult. He's going to actually waste his flash to survive. Beryl is very weak, but he's going to be the Leona who goes down first. There's a TP coming in from Rascal. He's in a bit of a vulnerable situation, but he's not going to take any damage. Okay, here we go. Now we've got a Baron fight. We've got to set up for Baron. DRX, all here. They're all here. T1, DRX don't know where T1 are as a whole. They can probably guarantee that Renekton's not going to be with the main group, just because that's the way Renekton plays. They can't 100% say that. But if they were to collapse here, could be kind of lethal for T1 in the 5v4. Obviously, Renekton can get over this wall quite easily. But it could be slightly lethal, because he's obviously somewhere underneath my camera. So this is actually going to be able to make it before they collapse, because they're not going to turn. But now he's over on his own, so they're going to be forced to turn. It's going to be the Varus who goes down first and Paddock. But Kroko and Rascal also quite weak. Kroko burns his flash. They trade 2 for 2? Oh my god. This has actually turned out way better than I thought for DRX. They managed to get Poby. Fate's still alive. They're going to get Owner here as well, thanks to the flash of Rascal. It's going to be Gumayusi and Rascal who stay alive. Gumayusi probably doesn't win the 1v1, even with Rascal that low on health, but it's worth running away for Rascal because you really don't want to lose it. Okay, here, T1 have managed to isolate themselves through this war, which is pretty big. They managed to isolate these three of their own players in this side of a choke. Fortunately for them, they have the Maokai off for the opposition having Maokai, because that would be a very effective Maokai ult here. But it means that it's quite easy for DRX to go in on someone, especially as it's not Gumayusi who's over the wall, so it's only Poby who's going to be able to poke over this wall. I actually might be too wide for him to do poke over this wall, I don't know. And Carrier's not going to be able to do anything over this wall. I know Leona's Q is not that ranged. So they're going to be able to get a lot of damage in this 5v4 situation, and Owner is going to go down very, very quickly. Zeus is going to be forced out of the position by Kroko, so that's a player gone down really for free. Okay, and now we get another Baron situation. You can see Gumayusi on this side of the wall looking to poke, and then you've got the rest of the team sort of concentrated in this air vague area. It's sort of down to DRX as to when they're going to turn. Rascal's already quite low HP, as you can see. Poby and Zeus have a little bit of poke out of them, but not significantly more than Beryl does, and definitely less than Rascal does. So it's quite a good situation. You can see Gumayusi's using his ult here. My dog's just done something with the chair. Sorry. Oh, that probably won't be edited out because I got caught so off guard by it that I'll get caught off guard with it when I go through once. I am now feeling really ill all of a sudden. Probably from T1's play, to be honest. Actually, it's not been that bad, to be fair. It's nowhere near as bad as I thought when I saw that T1 lost this series. Maybe it all comes down in the third game. So it's all going to be down to when DRX decide to turn. I've just noticed that Owner's dead. I can't believe I didn't notice that sooner. That's why I can only see 4 players. I assumed that someone was down, like, here-ish. But he's not. He's dead. So that means T1 are going to have absolutely no chance of taking Baron unless they manage to steal it through this Guma ult, as I can't see the HP bar, or they win the fight outright. But as it's a 5v4, they are disadvantageous. It's down to DRX choosing to turn. They don't have 3 of their ults. They're specifically the ults used for turning. So that's a little bit tragic. But Rascal can take someone out of the fight if he needs to with his. Fate obviously can do a lot with his to take someone out of the fight. So it's not exactly a bad position. And the only ult that T1 have is the Azir ult, which isn't necessarily the most useful in this situation. So the Guma ult doesn't really do anything. It gets a little bit of poke out. Carrier is setting up here. He could quite easily get turned on if DRX want to go for it, but they're going to burn down the thing first. Zeus is caught out of position a little bit, so he's going to be forced to back off, and T1 basically just ended up, it just results in them just staring at the Baron and watching their opponents take it in the end. This turret is obviously going to go down, so trying to hold on to it is pretty stupid. Gumayusi does the sensible thing and ease over so he doesn't get caught out. As this turret is going to go down, Poby's going to avoid the Braum ult and he's going to be able to get away. This is just a simple situation of sieging. They're doing it quite effectively. They're keeping the players up here between the in the jungle between the 2 turrets that they're going after to try and make sure that T1 also have to split, and so they can react to whatever collapse T1 eventually goes for if T1 do go for a collapse onto one of their players. Also worth saying that the turrets will, in this situation, because of the Baron turrets are basically just inevitably going to go down, so there's not a lot T1 can do. But T1, their split is a lot more concentrated towards bot side because they know that DRX is also concentrated towards bot side. They do have this vision ward here, which is really useful for T1 because they can see how DRX are reacting to certain things because they can basically guarantee that DRX is going to rotate through this channel here. Whilst DRX's vision is not the most efficient, so they don't know that there's a player here. They also won't know that there's a player here. They can assume that there's players here, and actually they can see because of the Sand Soldier. So yeah, as you can see, as the situation's moved on, Gumayushi's being an idiot and backing here. It's actually faster to walk once you're back here. Once you're this, basically, when you're the nexus side of this wall, it's almost always faster to walk back than it is to base back. So he's putting his team at a disadvantage here by putting them in a 5v4. Also, you can see that DRX are collapsing onto this turret to try and get rid of it. They also know that it's going to be a 4v4, and Owner is... They can't see Owner here in this situation, I don't think. They might be able to see Owner. But either way, they know Owner's going to be somewhere around here. So they know that they have the advantage because they've got all 4 players focused. on the situation. And they've got better poke. They're going to take the turret down very quickly because of Tristana and her E. Is it her E or is it her W? I actually don't know which way around it is. T1 are going to have limited situate chances to engage here. Zeus is already chunked out here. Carrier and Owner also chunked out. DRX don't really need to engage. They can just threaten engage on the opposing champs with lots of different things. And they can also just back off and grab Drake, which is what they're doing here. And there's not really any play that T1 can make as a trade. They can just basically all they can do is push out these 2 super minion waves as an attempt to respond. T1 do manage to get a turret, but it's not going to do a lot, even with the bounties. This turret's going to go down very quickly. Zeus gets caught out by the R, and that should be the game, because as soon as one player goes down, the fight that ensues is always going to be tragic. Owner's going to try and buy time here for the rest of his team to not go down, which he does do quite effectively. Gumishi's going to try and play from his turret. It's a bit silly, to be honestly, to play on his own, because he can get easily singled out and killed when he's not there on his own, because he's already singled himself out. Carrier might be able to trade his life for someone else. Rascal should go down. He's not going to. But Paddock is able to get Poby as well in the 1v1. So Gumayusi's going to have to try and fight for his life against 5, and he's just going to go down. Really nicely played. That was made by Paddock being able to get Poby there. If he doesn't get Poby, they don't win that fight. So that was really nicely done. As you can see, that's the game over. And on we go to game 3, which is going to be fun. I'm not going to lie, before we get into game 3, actually, if I was doing a power ranking, weekly power ranking of LCK, after this series, I would have T1 at the bottom of it. So, T1 fans, you now support the worst team in LCK, aka the worst team in Korea as far as anyone who doesn't watch Korean challenges is concerned. As someone who does watch Korean challenges, though, I'm still calling you the worst team in Korea because it's funny to wind up T1 fans. Move my camera back into the middle. Beautiful. I'm probably sounding quite nasally right now, and I do apologise for that. I think a cold's coming on. T1 draft in this game. It's not bad. It's not bad. You got Zeri or Jerry. You've got the Alistar. Decent lane match, decent lane pairing. Then you've got the Vi, who's relatively strong. You got Poby on his Azir again, which teams are really just not scared to ban out. He's proven he's not really LCK tier yet. Zeus on the Rumble. Rumble a very strong pick. The only thing I would say is that the win con for this comp is a little bit harder to play than your standard comps. It's a little bit harder to play than the first game. The DRX, it is a little bit spicy. They've got the Rel, they've got the Xayah, which is a decent matchup, especially when you consider that Rel is a power pick at the moment. They've got the Maokai. Basically, it's going to be DRX looking to engage. T1 are kind of doing a peeling thing in their back to front team fights. It's going to be kind of interesting. Obviously, we know now with retrospect, because I'm watching this obviously significantly after the game, that DRX win. I do think DRX's comp I would take. I think that has been the case of the second and third game. Game 1 was the only one where I'd take T1's comp. Gumayusi getting ganked early on, as per usual. Does manage to burn Croco's flash and the ghost on Paddock, but that is it. DRX also able to get 2 early Drakes, which is really nice for them. Zeus trying to take the Rift Herald here on his own. So Gumayusi, okay, we're not going to really get to talk about it because the fight didn't break out. But you can see that Gumayusi and Hikaria here are trying to play like bodyguards or bouncers even, and they're doing it with the owner over here. And what they're doing, I need to move my camera back, I just realised. They are like stopping because they know that DRX are all bot side because they just took Drake, and Poby is down here as well, who's going to try and go for the flank if they come up. They're just going to stop Rascal moving up here and trying to set up to try and contest Rift Herald. That's essentially the point anyway. And they do that quite effectively, clearly, because there's no fight that actually breaks out. Zeus is going to get caught out here. He's going to get Maokai ulted, along with getting poked out by Rascal. Even though the Maokai ult doesn't hit, it forces him towards the DRX turret, which just means it's easier to get the gank off, even no matter what happens. Owner is going to be able to trade the turrets, though. They're going to get 2 turrets quite quickly here. I can't lie, watching it in highlights where the highlights total is 5 minutes long, it really puts the time, makes it feel different. Here, we've got a Drake fight. Okay, so you can see here that DRX control the river. This means into a Maokai, a Rel, and a Jace, and AK Sante, and even a Zaya to a degree, who like chokes. All of them, apart from Zaya, love chokes. You've got to go through a choke. You can either do it collectively, in which case you're going to get fucked in terms of damage initially, but then you are collectively together and you're not going to get split out. Or you've got to go separately, in which case you risk getting picked off. I do prefer going separately, but like in a way that's quite clever. Like, let's say you go through this one here and this one here, but that requires you to control mid. If you go through this one here and this one here, you're not likely to get ganked. The reason why, basically, you want to go through 2 of these 3, actually. Because that way, if you do get collapsed upon, it shouldn't take you too long to respond. The only issue of going through the middle bit is that if you have some... It's like, it just takes a little bit longer to catch up. Because this gap is shorter than coming round, in either sense. But yeah, you've got to go through a choke. Your team is worse than chokes. Yeah, everyone's got absolutely all the utilities, so there's no reason why they're going to dry engage you. Looks like they're going to look to try and catch carry out over the wall, even if it's just to do damage, and poke him out, because he is the main tanky option on T1, and so poking him does a lot for your engage potential. He's actually going to commit to going in. That's a bit silly, because he's going to be basically dead, especially if they made the feathers fly, but he had to deal with Gumayusi and lost. Fate's going to go down as well to Gumayusi. They did manage to trade back onto Owner and Carrier, though. The Jace also goes down. Oh, wait, that was the Jace, actually. Gumayusi's going to be able to escape Rascal, but he is ultimately going to be very, very weak. Croco's going to go down, so actually T1 did manage to win. And that's despite the disadvantageous position, which is kind of funny. But, oh, God, I've definitely got a cold coming on. But T1 managed to win that fight. That's pretty impressive, to be fair. That's definitely a hands diff. As I did mention in a previous video that I thought, in the weekly update video, Hank, that I thought their mechanics were getting worse. Here, this is a situation where you're playing without vision for Carrier. He's trying to get vision on the pit to stop DRX going for a play on the Baron. And this is why you don't do it solo, because you just get collapsed on like Carrier is here, and he's going to go down. He's going to pop his ult to try and buy time, but there's no way his team can actually get there and help. So they're just going to try and put damage on this turret and take the Drake, because that's just more sensible and easier to do. It does mean, though, that DRX can then go for Baron in a 5v4 situation. What it means at the Baron is that they can then easily collapse on T1 if they contest, which they do. They manage to get Owner quite easily. As you can see in the replay, easily done. Well done to them. God, I do feel ill. I feel so ill. They did manage to get Rascal on the trade, or not? No, they didn't manage to get Rascal on the trade, unfortunately, for T1. I guess that's part of why they lost. They also managed to get another Drake as well for DRX, so they're now on Soul Point. Although that is a bit of a misleading term, because Drake number 3 is not that important at the end of the day. Drake 4 is the only one that really matters. Yeah, so there's a lot of trading for turrets. Poby is going to lose this 1v1, but it's fine because he's going to use his ult to get away. But that does mean his ult's down for this siege here. There's not going to be too much stress because the Drake and the Baron are going to come up. Rascal gets engaged. So this is a situation where a player being isolated on his own is actually a good thing. So it's a bit weird because obviously I preach that being isolated means you're easy to be collapsed on, and I think a lot of people think it's that way. Because of Rascal's ult, he can basically drive any player he wants when he gets collapsed on into his team. So that means that when he drives that player into this area where his team is, that player is going to die very, very quickly. And what that means is he's going to trade a lot of his own health for a guaranteed kill. What that also means is that he can choose any of these 3 delicious targets. He takes down Owner. If he takes down Owner, there's no jungler for the Baron. It is the riskiest one because it does mean you're putting the smite or the enemy smite close to a Baron that you're trying to take, and you're only going to try and turn off it quickly. You could take Gumayusi. You could take Poby, 2 of the carries in the game. And that's your 2 options. What actually happens is he takes Owner, the more risky one. Owner forces out his stopwatch, but the Baron's already gone down. T1 also lose this fight. Unfortunately, when Gumayusi goes over, they don't actually have enough damage to take anyone down. Also, Target Pro is a little bit weak there. They do eventually get one back onto Maokai, but it's still 4 for 1, and it's going to end up probably as a 5 for 1. In fact, should do. Carrier actually knows the mechanics of those interactions better than I do, apparently, because I didn't know that that was the way that headbutt worked. I thought that Rel was somewhat unmovable in that situation, but apparently not. So that's going to be the guaranteed end, and that's going to be the game. Ends up being pretty tragic for T1. Now the worst team in Korea. Oh dear, it's tragic, but also kind of funny. I'm looking forward to seeing Faker return and save this team, though. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because I am in fact a Faker fan. I might be a T1 hater, but I am a Faker fan.